This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, legendary Boxing Hall of Fame writer and sports guru. So, Jack, how you doing this morning?
Hey, good, Mac. A lot of sports news to cover.
Yes, a lot of free agency. It's a free agency frenzy out there right now, Jack. So let's start about your boy there, Aaron Rodgers. Says he intends to play for the Jets, wants to play for the Jets. They're getting wide receivers for him on the Jets. I think they just signed Lazard. The only thing holding him up right now is the money and the compensation. And the team that's holding him up is the Green Bay Packers, Jack. They're trying to hold out to see exactly what the Jets are willing to do to get Aaron Rodgers, Jack.
Aaron Rodgers made it clear he wants to play for the Jets. This is where he wants to be. He wants to be a New York Jet, so there can't be any controversy now what Aaron wants, what Aaron doesn't want. Might he retire? Might he this? Might he that? He made his intentions clear. Now it's a question of the Packers and Jets coming to some sort of an agreement on the compensation, as you said. But why didn't they have the parameters in place before? I don't get this, okay? I think the Packers were so anxious to move on from Aaron Rodgers after a while that they didn't fully think of the consequences. Like, wait a second. We're giving away one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history, even if it's maybe towards the end of his career, and we want to finally move on from all the drama. They even have a deal in place. What was the minimum they were going to take? And the Jets, too, they're making all these moves. Can you imagine they get Alan Lazard? Let's say they pick up Randall Cobb. They do this, they do that. They've been clearing cap space for Rodgers. And all of a sudden, they can't work out a deal. With that said, a deal's got to work out. Look, Mac, the Packers aren't going to trade Aaron Rodgers elsewhere. He's not going to go elsewhere. It's either the Jets or Aaron Rodgers simply won't play. And the Packers know that. And it's also a question with the Packer organization. You don't want to play hardball with Aaron Rodgers, even though you're moving on from him. Despite the drama that took place, Aaron Rodgers is a Packer legend. Arguably, he's the greatest Green Bay Packer in the franchise's history. So a Packer legend, you don't want to mess around with him, saying, no, you're not going to get to go to the Jets. We don't like their compensation. We like the other team's compensation. Either you play for the other team or you retire. Aaron Rodgers could just call their bluff. He could say, I'm coming back to the Packers then if you can't work out a deal. I'm coming back to you. Can you imagine Aaron Rodgers called their bluff and said he's coming back to the Packers after they told Jordan Love, and I'm sure they've told Jordan Love, you're going to be the starter. You know how uncomfortable that would be? So with that said, it's just a matter of time before the Packers and Jets come to some type of agreement. The Jets aren't going to give the heavy asking price that the Packers might want, such as what the Rams gave up a couple of number ones for Matthew Stafford, probably a number 2 or number 3, and they kind of move on.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now in the East, Aaron Rodgers is probably in the top 5 to top 10 quarterbacks right now. I think
in the NFL.
Yeah, I think he makes the Jets a Super Bowl contender, Jack.
Yeah, well, with the Jets defense, I mean, Robert Salah, when he was asked about it, doesn't have to make many changes. We just got to run it back, basically. Just play the way you did last year. That's what they want the defense to know. They had an injury, a key injury, Bryce Hall in the running back position. And the Jets lost their last 6 games of the regular season. And you saw Bryce Hall's value when he went out. What's concerning to me, Mac, is team chemistry with the Jets going forward. And it's this: Aaron Rodgers has already made demands for the Jets to bring in certain players from the Packers, which they have with Alan Lazard. He's also asked them to bring in Randall Cobb and OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr. He wants the Jets to sign them. Now, just think of this. Garrett Wilson, the Jets' sensational rookie last year, he was tweeting how badly he wanted Aaron Rodgers before this. Elijah Moore, excellent receiver on the Jets, he was saying how much he wanted Aaron Rodgers. What is Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore thinking now? Wait a second. Why is Aaron Rodgers asking for these receivers to come in? They're going to get my catches. It's going to diminish me somewhat. And, of course, we're going to hear the argument, nah, Aaron will spread the ball around. There's enough catches for everyone. But you kind of wonder. But in the sense of poetic justice, you want to know why, Mac? When Zach Wilson struggled, Garrett Wilson wasn't the warmest and fuzziest towards Garrett Wilson's struggles. And in the offseason, how's a quarterback like Garrett Wilson supposed to, Zach Wilson, I said Garrett, Zach Wilson, how is he supposed to feel when Garrett Wilson is advocating for Aaron Rodgers? You know what? When you're position playing, your teammates are advocating for someone else to come in who plays your position. What does that mean to the relationship? What does that mean to the team chemistry? I think it means a lot in a negative way.
Well, they sort of already did that with Mike White, right? I mean, they were wearing the shirts and wanting Mike White to be the starting quarterback instead of Wilson. So I think he's, Wilson and the players have already kind of gone through that. So it's going to be interesting.
Robert Saleh, Jet coach Robert Saleh lost control of the team by allowing that to happen, by allowing the players to wear these shirts advocating for someone on the team over someone else. You lose control of the team. I mean, you could silently hope for something. You could quietly talk to a coach on the side confidentially and let them know how you feel about something, what could work better than something else. That's fine. But to publicly advocate, how is Zach Wilson supposed to feel about these guys?
Yeah.
Okay? When they do something like that.
I definitely agree with that. The latest rumor on Lamar Jackson is the possibility, and I said it on our show first, the possibility that he might end up with the 49ers. And could you imagine, Jack, Lamar Jackson on the 49ers, what kind of team that would be? I mean, 3 running backs, legitimate running backs, and Lamar can throw the ball. And in fact, so can a couple of the other guys on the team. So, I mean, this offense would be dynamic. Of course, it would depend on their defense, as they always do. But could you imagine, Jack, how far the 49ers would go if they get Lamar Jackson?
I don't know how that would work. I think it's nothing but a rumor. I think someone puts something out there and everyone picks up on it. The 49ers just picked up Sam Darnold. Now, Sam Darnold at this point is no Aaron Rodgers, but he was on an upswing last year. He'd improved over the last few games. He's been around 5 years, Sam Darnold, and they have Brock Purdy there, Trey Lance, and between the 3 of them, they'll work out who's going to be their starter. They have 3 potential options, none as good as Lamar Jackson, granted. But do they have the money under the cap, number one? Have they been clearing cap space for Lamar Jackson? Not quite. And also, do they have the draft capital? Because any team signing Lamar Jackson has to give up 2 number ones. In the 49er cases, are the number ones in the future because they're not going to have them right now? Well, most teams don't have 2 number ones in 1 year anyway.
Right.
I think someone put something out there like that, but when you think of it, wow, does that make sense? If he went to the 49ers, you know how devastating they would be with their legs? Lamar Jackson, Debo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey running the ball. I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah, unstoppable.
But I think it makes a lot more sense him going to the Washington Commanders. The Commanders are right next door to Baltimore where they play. Their starting quarterback is Sam Howell, who
Right.
I doubt is going to be the starting quarterback before the year's over. Why Sam Howell's been given the starting quarterback position is beyond me. He wasn't an elite college quarterback, and he was drafted in the 5th round, a backup, and he had one good game basically at the end of the last season, and they want to give him the starting job. I mean, I just don't get it.
Well, glad you bring up the Commanders. It's said that Jacob B. Brissett will be signing with the Commanders. So that would be definitely an upgrade from Howell. And, with the new offensive coordinator, maybe they can get him going this year, Jack.
A good bridge quarterback is Jacoby Brissett. If you're counting on Jacoby Brissett to be your long-term start in the league, you're making a mistake. He could fill in for season, possibly have a good season. You put him in the right spot. He started for Cleveland last year during Deshaun Watson's absence. So he got a chance to reset his value, and he reset it so-so. And he showed he wasn't a starting NFL caliber quarterback, but he showed he was a very good backup who you could plug in and maybe be a bridge quarterback. And if Sam Howell is struggling, yeah, they go to Jacoby Brissett. The Commanders have an excellent defense. They really have a good defense. But they have problems on the other side of the ball. And Jacoby Brissett, isn't going to rank as one of the better starting quarterbacks in the NFL. He'd rank all the way towards the bottom if you did start him. But I do admit, Mac, he is a little bit of an upgrade over Sam Howell at this point, at least. And we'll see what Sam Howell could do. Maybe Sam Howell show that he's a really good prospect with a lot of upside. And if not, they go to Jacoby Brissett. In other words, the Commanders aren't making the playoffs.
Yes, and great point. It looks like they're thinking along your lines, Jack, because they only signed him to a 1-year contract for $8 million. So it looks like they're doing exactly what you're saying. It looks like Baker Mayfield will be signing a 1-year deal, replacing Tom Brady at Tampa Bay. It's not official yet, but it looks that's going to happen. Jack, I mean, what does Baker actually bring to Tampa Bay? Does that make Tampa Bay a contender?
Is Baker going to automatically be given a starting job? A couple of years ago, they drafted Kyle Trask late in the 1st round, the Buccaneers, while they had Brady, but no one took that pick seriously because no one was going to compete with Brady for the Tampa Bay Buccaneer job, especially after he won the Super Bowl. So that was a no-brainer. But the job is there for Baker's. If he takes it, it's a great place to go to. It's a chance for Baker to reset his value. He kind of did it in a way with the Rams last year, okay? He showed he's worth to take perhaps a chance on short term. And the Buccaneers aren't the same team. They won the division last year with an 8-9 record, a really weak division that they were in. And they're basically, they seem to be rebuilding as much as they are retooling. And it might be a good place for Baker, because if he could shine in Tampa Bay, have a good year going forward, maybe he gets a contract as their starter, over a fair amount of time. Keep in mind, the Cleveland Browns, before they signed Deshaun Watson, take a long-term deal. So it's not like Baker showed he can't be a quality quarterback in the NFL, because he did have 2 good years with Cleveland out of the 4 he was there. And he filled in very nicely for Matthew Stafford with the Rams as a starting quarterback last year. But let's not forget, he was handed the Carolina Panthers starting job. and did poorly there and lost it. And then it got released from Carolina as well.
Yeah, that's only a 1-year deal for Baker also.
If he gets it, if he signs it, and all indications are that he will, at least he should.
Yeah. Atlanta signs Tyler Henneke, 2 years, $20 million, Jack. Tyler Henneke played pretty well for the Redskins. Players liked him. Atlanta's still a long ways away from contending. So kind of makes sense to me. How about you?
It makes a lot of sense if you're Tyler Henneke. If you're the Atlanta Falcons, he's not your answer long term, a 2-year deal, competent backup. You could plug him in. You could even use him as a bridge quarterback. If you have an elite quarterback you drafted and you want him to carry a clipboard half the season, okay, you play Tyler Henneke. Tyler Henneke is just another guy, just another backup. He could have a good game now and then. But some of these backups like Tyler Henneke are very smart because they want to start. They want a good contract. They want to play. And they look at the team where they might be able to play. And yeah, Atlanta's a good landing spot for Tyler Henneke because who's their starter? Desmond Ridder.
Yeah.
Desmond Ridder was a 4-year starter with the Cincinnati Bengals, and he has 1 year under his belt. Now Desmond Ridder is being given the starting job at Atlanta. Who knows what Desmond Ridder is going to do? Maybe he's going to struggle. And if he struggles, they bring in Tyler Henneke. If Tyler Henneke plays well, who knows? Maybe they move forward with them. Keep in mind, that was Marcus Mariota's job last year with the Falcons, and Mariota didn't pass his year-long audition. We'll see whether Henneke does, but I doubt it. If the Falcons are counting on Tyler Henneke to possibly be their quarterback of the future, if Desmond Ridder falters, they're going to be in deep, deep trouble.
Agree. Jimmy Garoppolo, 3 years, $72.75 million with the Raiders, Jack. I mean, Garoppolo, despite his injuries, and that's probably the biggest concern I would have, him coming over to start for my team. He still is. He's a winner wherever he goes. So the Raiders, not so good on defense, got some weapons. How you like Garoppolo to the Raiders?
Is Garoppolo healthy? That's number one. Okay, he was out last year, injured. If he's healthy, I love the deal for the Raiders. It makes a ton of sense. I mean, just think of it. He's reuniting with Josh McDaniels, who was his offensive coordinator at New England. Now, Tom Brady played the bulk of the time at New England, of course, and Garoppolo didn't play much. But Josh McDaniels saw Garoppolo at practice every day. He drew up plays. It was Garoppolo's job to learn Josh McDaniels' system. So it's win-win because they already have a relationship there. Mm-hmm. Garoppolo and Josh McDaniels. What gets me, Mac, when you mention the contract, 3 years, $72 million, that's a lot less than Daniel Jones got. Garoppolo's as good as Daniel Jones at this point, at least. Does Daniel Jones have more upside? Maybe. I mean, I don't know. With his legs, he does. But you kind of wonder some of these deals. Had the Giants maybe franchise Daniel Jones and they wanted to see where the team would offer 2 number 1 picks, they could have done that, and then they could have paid Garoppolo more than the Raiders and maybe signed them. I mean, that may have been a better fit all around. But, in another intriguing free agent signing. Man, one free agent signing maybe slipped under the radar, but it's going to be pretty big. The Cincinnati Bengals signed Orlando Brown, the offensive tackle from the Kansas City Chiefs. And the one Achilles heel that this Bengal team has had has been protecting Joe Burrow. They've been trying to address the issue the last couple of years. They've gotten a little bit better in that regard, but they've still struggled. Orlando Brown is an elite offensive tackle, arguably the best in the NFL, and one of the best for sure. And that's going to mean a lot for the Cincinnati Bengal offensive line.
I agree with that. Continue with the quarterbacks, Jack. Denver signs quarterback Jarrett Stidham, 2 years, $10 million. Again, a stopgap probably if you're only signing for 2 years.
It might be more than a stopgap, Mac. It might be more than a stopgap, even though it seems that way on the surface. Look at Stidham's history. We have to go back a little bit. He was a 4th-round pick by the New England Patriots. And of course, he was going to play behind Tom Brady when Tom Brady was at New England. But when Tom Brady left to go to Tampa Bay, people thought Stidham might be the heir apparent. He went to training camp. He competed against Cam Newton and lost the job to Newton. Lost the job to a dated Cam Newton, who wasn't the same Cam Newton we knew when he was with the Carolina Panthers, even close to it. So for some reason, I don't know what it was. Did Stidham get injured, a missed time? That they said that was maybe the case, or he just got out hustled in training camp. But Bill Belichick moved on from him. But once again, Josh McDaniels, that was his guy at New England. Another one of his quarterbacks, Stidham. So Stidham goes to the Raiders, okay? And he reunites with Josh McDaniels after the Raiders moved on from Derek Carr late in the season. Stidham played for the Raiders. He did actually a decent job. But I guess with the Raiders, when they saw the opportunity to get Jimmy Garoppolo, Stidham saw, I want to go somewhere where I could start. Now he goes to Denver. And you might say, Mac, how's he going to start? Russell Wilson's there. Russell Wilson has such a big contract. Wilson has to start. But I'm going to tell you, if Russell Wilson falters, Sean Payton, the new head coach, is going to bench Russell Wilson and put Stidham in and give Stidham a chance to win the starting job if Russell Wilson is struggling. And I think Stidham sees that I can pick up the pieces. Russell Wilson, despite his massive contract, isn't a lock to be the long-term starter if he's not performing at a very high level.
Well, all right. The Red Rocket.
I just want to go back to quarterbacks. It's intriguing where these guys go to, where they want to land to pick up because they all want to start for the most part. Andy Dalton goes to the Carolina Panthers. Now, the Panthers are picking number 1 in the whole overall in the draft. So Andy Dalton has absolutely no future as a starter for the Carolina Panthers. Maybe he could play a full season if they decide whoever they draft should carry the clipboard. You love the clipboard holding for a year, Mac. I don't like it. You like it, even though in some cases I can justify it as well. So Andy Dalton figures I could get to play the first year while the rookie sits, and I could show what my value is. So he's auditioning kind of a starting job somewhere, Andy Dalton, by playing a limited amount of games, maybe starting for the Panthers, maybe. But the Panthers also have another quarterback, Matt Corral, who was injured last year, who was drafted in the 3rd round. How's he supposed to feel? Wait a second, I got no future at Carolina. They're drafting a quarterback number 1. They brought in Andy Dalton as the backup. I'm going to be a 3rd stringer here.
Yeah.
And then you take Jameis Winston, Mac, very quickly here. Jameis Winston is staying with New Orleans as a backup to Derek Carr. Jameis Winston says he loves the city of New Orleans. Jameis Winston has to know there is no way he is seeing the field unless Derek Carr gets injured, and you don't count on that or want that to happen. So he's not going somewhere where he can reset his career, Jameis Winston. He's staying as a backup in New Orleans because he loves the city, loves the team, loves the environment. So it's not a career move per se. It's a move, that he enjoys. It's a move for convenience to just stay put where he is. And good for the Saints because they're going to have a competent backup. And if Jameis Winston is healthy on top of his game, Mac, I'm going to tell you, it's as good as Derek Carr.
Okay. All right. We got you mentioned Andy Dalton right there. Darnold with the 49ers. I think we spoke.
Good move. Good move.
Yeah.
Good move. It gives them a lot of depth. 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Donald, Purdy, and Lance. We don't know how Purdy's going to be recovering from the injury. We don't know how good Lance is, even though you've gone on the limb, Mac, and you don't think much of Lance. So then they have Sam Darnold.
Right.
Between the 3 of them, you know, if you have enough quantity, maybe you could find the right guy if you have enough quantity.
Right. I agree with that. And you can always trade Lance down the road if you want. Good morning, Jason. Glad that you made it aboard.
Hey, Jason, how you doing?
So a backup, we have Mike White leaving the Jets to sign with the Dolphins. Mike White, tough guy, very popular. I think it's a good backup to Tua.
Excellent move by Mike White. You know, excellent. Teddy Bridgewater is going to be a free agent. We don't know who Teddy Bridgewater is going to sign with. Teddy Bridgewater has started in the NFL. He's been given opportunities to start, hasn't been able to hold on to jobs. Teddy Bridgewater, to me, is fine as a backup somewhere. But, of course, he's looking maybe to reset his career. Wherever he winds up, he winds up. Mike White is going to Miami as a backup. There's no realistic chance he could start over Tua, except for this, unless Tua gets injured. Tua's injury prone. Mike White sees this. Tua might not be able to see the field for every game. If that's the case, they bring in Mike White, a competent backup. Okay, a competent backup. He created a buzz coming in for Zach Wilson, but the reason he created the buzz because Zach Wilson was so bad in some games. Mike White hasn't shown that he could be a capable NFL starter, but play him enough games, you never know. And if Tua's out with any type of injuries, Mike White's going to see the field. If Tua's not out, if he stays healthy, Mike White's not going to see the field because Tua's flat out a better quarterback than Mike White. But Mike White potentially could start in the NFL, potentially, you know, but let's see if he could prove it if he gets the opportunity at all with Miami.
The Patriots pick up a big wide receiver, former Steeler, Juju Smith-Schuster.
Juju Schuster, good move. They're giving Mac Jones a target there.
Yeah.
A quality NFL receiver, Juju Schuster, who moved around, you know, from the Bears. He was with Kansas City when they won the Super Bowl, you know, had a good game there. And they're getting, you know, the weapons there. They're getting the weapons there. They also picked up the Patriots that have slipped under the radar, James Robinson. Now, James Robinson had started for Jacksonville. He showed potential, and then he hit a wall. He slid backwards for some reason. And in the beginning was Urban Meyer's fault. He was a good player before Urban Meyer got there. Then Urban Meyer gets there. Then his performances went down. And even Trevor Lawrence didn't like the way Urban Meyer used James Robinson. But then when Doug Peterson came on, James Robinson just didn't really have it. So they traded him to the Jets. And he didn't perform for the Jets. He didn't perform. James Robinson's going to say he wasn't given the opportunity really with the Jets. And the Jets are going to just basically say he didn't look good in practice. You got to remember, Mac, everyone has to remember, they see these guys in practice every day. You know, the Jet coaching staff, and they see the way they're performing. We only see them game days, and we might feel, well, why aren't they using a player more? Well, if you're not performing during practice, you're not looking good during practice, you're not going to play as much. But now James Robinson goes to New England. Let's see if he could revive his career. He's still young enough. This could be a steal for New England. And if it isn't, what did they really lose? You know, they gave him a low base salary. You know, it's a small gamble by New England, but certainly one worth taking.
You know, Jack, even down to the high school level, there are practice players and game players. There are players that look unbelievable in practice, and they get out during the game, and for some reason, they don't perform well. Same for the other. I know guys that dogged it at practice, and during the game, they would explode. So I guess it's the same in the NFL. I guess that's just a part of playing football, where, you see a guy in practice, he looks great or he doesn't look good, and you form an opinion. And then during the game, they either shine or they don't. And I think that's one of the tough things about coaching at any level. Who's really good and who's not. And the ultimate test is the game. So that's what I've come to know. Anyway.
Yeah, well, certain guys during practice, Mac, are playing at a very high level. And the guys they're going against, they're kind of just saving it. They're just kind of like half speed. Not that they're not trying, but they're not playing it like it would be close to game conditions. They're kind of saving themselves. So one guy's going to look a little better than the other. It's like two boxers sparring in the ring. You could get the greatest boxer in the world, and he's just working on things, working on technique, going half speed, working on his conditioning, while the other guy is putting so much effort into, that sparring session. Of course, he's going to look, much better, but come the actual fight, when everything is on the line and you have to dig down deep, that separates, who's better than the other guy.
Definitely. Giants, they signed Darren Waller, tight end from the Raiders. Now, Waller's been injured, Jack, the last 2 years. Before that, he was one of the best tight ends in the league. I think it's a good signing. They haven't had a good tight end, I guess, since Jeremy Shockey, maybe?
No, come on, Mac. They've mismanaged their tight ends. A couple of years ago, they got Kyle Rudolph from the Minnesota Vikings, and we were excited. Oh, the Giants got a quality tight end, the guy who's really good blocker. He'll complement Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram, Jacksonville Jaguars just franchise tagged him. He was that good with Jacksonville, and he couldn't cut it with the Giants. Sometimes it comes down to coaching. Some guys are coached better than the other guys, and Evan Ingram was apparently coached better by Doug Peterson at Jacksonville than he had with a couple of his Giant coaches. And I know Evan Ingram had the drops. He would drop balls. That would be a problem. But maybe coaching has a bearing on that, teaching a guy how to concentrate, building up his confidence. But you're right. You said the key thing a moment ago, Mac. Darren Waller, he's been injured the last couple of years. Can he stay on the field?
Yeah.
I mean, will the real Darren Waller stand up? The one that was so good a couple of years ago with the Raiders, one of the better tight ends in the league, or the one who's been injured a couple of years, the last couple of years? And there's a reason a guy's been injured a couple of years in a row. If he's been injured 2 years in a row, what makes us think he's going to be healthy going forward? We don't know. We're taking a real gamble on that guy that he is going to be healthy going forward. But it's a good thing with the Giants. They're getting Daniel Jones a weapon, and also the Giants are putting a lot of emphasis on the tight end position because they probably look to see who are the wideouts available. And the only one that might be appealing to them at this moment would be OBJ, a reunion with Odell Beckham Jr. Maybe Odell Beckham Jr. Thinks fondly of his past time with the Giants and doesn't mind coming back here. And they'd have him back. But what I hear is OBJ wants quite a bit of money. And he's coming off, a couple of injury-plagued seasons. So is he really going to get it?
Yeah, I agree with that. They also signed a long-term favorite, Sterling Shepard, again, injured a lot. I'm not sure what the price was, Jack. I didn't see that. Good team player, loves being in New York. But again, injury. Can he stay healthy? That will be a key to whether he has a good year or not.
Well, obviously they like Shepard, and he worked out the deal to the Giants' satisfaction because he wanted to stay here as well. And yeah, I mean, you got to get Daniel Jones some quality, receivers and tight ends. They got him Waller, Shepard to keep around because Daniel Jones was doing an awful lot with his legs last year. We know Daniel Jones is elusive. He can run with the football. That's great. But that catches up to you after a while because the defenses are going to concentrate on containing Daniel Jones. and they're going to be challenging Daniel Jones to beat them through the air.
Yeah.
And he's got to have the weapons to throw too. So, re-signing Shepard is definitely a good move by the Giants.
They did pick up a few defensive linemen, a couple linebackers. A lot of it's for depth. It's at cornerback too. They picked up somebody. They picked up a wide receiver, Jack, that played with the Jets. I ain't never heard of him before, and I know the GM is known for doing that. I'm trying to get his name. I know he's number 16. Maybe they're picking him up for special teams.
Well,
I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, teams take flyers on guys all the time. I'm not sure who you're referring to, but Joe Shine, the Giant GM, he worked at the front office for the Buffalo Bills. So
Right.
He's very familiar with the AFC East. You're more familiar with your own division because you play those teams twice a year. You get to see opposing players. And it's very easy to get a scouting report on the elite players, the guys
Right.
who play a lot. Very easy, okay? But the guys who don't play much, the reserve players, those are sometimes the steals. You can see you could get them very cheaply or for nothing at all, and you sign them, and all of a sudden you have a guy who's really helping your team.
Right. Cowboy news, Zeke Elliott was cut by the Cowboys. There's word out there that the Kansas City Chiefs may show a little interest. But Zeke Elliott, top 3 running back in Dallas Cowboy history, Jack?
Oh, boy. I mean, I'd have to sit down and, you'd have to think a lot who would rate behind Emmitt Smith. Ezekiel Elliott, it's kind of been disappointing, his career, when you think of it. He's 27 years old, and he's flamed out completely. I mean, in the last couple of years, you could tell there's been a decline setting in. They gave him the big contract. He came in as a rookie from Ohio State. He really lit it up and played great. So he earned that contract. He was one of the best running backs in the NFL when the Cowboys gave him the contract. And what's happened to him? I mean, this is a case of a young player just happening to lose it. And I don't think it's an attitude thing at all. He's just not the same player as before. But he's got a big name. And when players have a big name like Ezekiel Elliott, someone's going to take a chance on him. We saw it happen with Darrelle Revis. Revis couldn't play at the end of his career. You mentioned Kansas City. That's where he wound up at the end of his career, with the Kansas City Chiefs as a faded over-the-hill player. So Ezekiel Elliott is winding up at Kansas City. Didn't they take a chance on Le'Veon Bell, too? Yeah. Kansas City. And Bell couldn't cut it with Kansas City because he all of a sudden lost it. He didn't have it anymore.
Yeah.
And this talk about running backs maybe losing it at a younger age. But come on, he's 27 years old. You should be just as good as when you were 23, when you're 27. You shouldn't lose anything physically.
Yeah, but they used him, Jack. They were giving the ball 30 times a game. I mean, they ran him into the ground. So, because of that, I think that's why he's lost it. I don't think it's a drop in talent or in anything like that. When you run a running back like that, he gets punished. I don't care how big he is. And, maybe he ends up with Kansas City, maybe not. Who knows? I mean, I would definitely give him a shot to make my team and see what he's got left in the tank. So,
yeah, Max, but is it physical or mental on a guy like Ezekiel Elliott? You're saying, okay, they give a running back like him the ball 30 times a game. He gets pounded enough so he loses it. I don't think you lose it physically by the time you're 27. Mentally, maybe. Maybe you don't have the same drive as before. A running back like Derrick Henry, they kept using him over and over and over again, the Titans, and he, is able to perform. But in any event, Ezekiel Elliott, I could see that being a decent fit there in Kansas City, because Kansas City, they have Pacheco, who was a great surprise 7th-round draft pick from Rutgers, who, performed beyond anyone's expectations at Kansas City. and Ezekiel Elliott might go there. Maybe it's a role player for all we
Yeah.
know. But does he have much left? I don't think so. But there has to be a buyer beware thing now with the Dallas Cowboys, their own guy, Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard's coming off a leg injury. Are they going to give Tony Pollard a long-term contract? They're going to have to be very careful because especially coming off the leg injury, in a certain sense, you want Tony Pollard to prove himself again. So it's kind of a sticky situation what the Cowboys should do with his contract.
Yeah, you brought up Derrick Henry. Just before we went on, Jack, there was something about Derrick Henry in a 3-year contract, and I think they said to the Bengals. So we'll see. I'll see if I'm right or not.
What did they say? What with Derrick Henry? What did you say?
I said, from what I caught before we come on, Derrick Henry, a 3-year contract to the Bengals.
To the Bengals?
Yeah.
They didn't trade Derrick Henry, Mac?
No, they didn't. I didn't say they traded him. I said
Bengals?
No, I said I heard that Derrick Henry was released, Jack. He wasn't traded. So what I thought I saw before we came on was Derrick Henry was getting a 3-year contract, possibly from the Bengals. And I'll check it out more when we get off the air. But that's
Derrick Henry's on the Tennessee Titans.
I know, but they released him.
Derrick Henry?
Yeah, they just released him.
No, they didn't release Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's one of the better running backs. Didn't get released, Mac. Wrong report.
Let's see. Henry.
No, it didn't happen, Mac.
Henry.
Cincinnati would pick him up quickly, believe me.
No doubt.
But there are also considerations with the cap with someone like Derrick Henry. But Tennessee, they would be in a complete rebuild if they're moving on from Derrick Henry.
Well, it says news about Derrick Henry is released, Jack.
Released, not really. He wasn't released. News.
That's what it says. He
wasn't released. Mac, let's get on to the next topic. He wasn't released.
Okay.
By the Titans. It didn't happen.
All right. So, a little bit more on the Cowboys. Donovan Wilson, safety, 3 years, $24 million. Cornerback Gilmore, pairing up with Trevon Diggs at cornerback. And Devin Wilson, the safety, will be getting a 3-year, $24 million contract.
Yeah, Cowboys are concentrating on defense. They re-signed Van Der Esch, and to get Stephen Gilmore and to team him up with Diggs, as cornerbacks. I mean, that's going to be a nice duo. They're going to be hard to pass against, the Dallas team. And especially, I said Van Der Esch and with Micah Parsons at the linebacker position. They're going to have a good defense, the Cowboys. That's what they're concentrating on. They seem to be lacking a little on the offensive side of the ball, but they're looking to win with defense next year.
Yeah, that was Dallas's biggest weakness last year in their defense was their defensive backfield. So they're trying to.
Stephen Gilmore is he's going to help them at the top of his game. He's an elite cornerback.
Definitely. So Jack, let's push on to the NBA news here. Ja Morant's entering counseling in Florida. It looks like he's going to miss out on $30 million of his contract, which he'll be able to make up. So Ja Morant is getting counseling, Jack. Good for him. He needs it, and it's going to help him be not only better.
But he's not missing out on $30 million. He's missing out maybe on the 8 games. I don't like this whole Ja Morant thing, how it's being handled. The NBA should be deciding when Ja Morant is out and for how long. Ja Morant knew he was going to get suspended. The people advising him knew he was going to get suspended. They knew the NBA could come down very hard on him. So for damage control, they say, oh, Ja Morant is taking time off to get help and counseling, which he was. Right. And I'm not doubting the sincerity behind that at all. But it's not for them to decide how long Ja Morant is out. Oh, he's out 8 games. Oh, I need additional time. Now I'm ready to come back. So he just comes back when he decides. You know, Jay Morant had a few incidents. It wasn't that just that one incident caught on tape where he had a gun on him joking around. That embarrassed the heck out of the NBA. What about Jay Morant threatening a security guard, and the security guard had to call for backup in a shopping mall? What about that? What about him supposedly putting hands on a kid and then showing the kid he had a gun on him during a pickup game of basketball? What about the thing with the Indiana Pacers where they flashed something to scare the Pacers to have a big laugh? What about all these things? Jay Morant should not decide how long he's out. That should be the NBA. You know what the NBA should say? Fine. You voluntarily sat out the 8 games on yourself. You claim you're okay with the counseling. Now we're coming down with our disciplinary actions. We're glad you got counseling, but everything you did is totally unacceptable. We're suspending you for 1 season. 1 season we're suspending you. You don't decide on your discipline. Then he loses his 30 million Mac or whatever he's making for the year. He's young enough to make an incredible amount of millions after that. You get the message to him. You know what happens? We see statements put out by players and they're showing all their remorse in this and that. And I don't know whether Jay Morant has any remorse at all. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't. I don't have a clue. But the agents and the people advising them are smart. They put out the right words, the right statement. They also realize they have to get ahead of the curve, meaning ahead of the NBA. Because if they don't do anything, the NBA is going to step forward and they're going to hand out their own discipline. And it might be more than they care for. And then they're going to have to go for all this counseling and this and that. So they go for the counseling again. And Jay Morant says, no, I still want to stay out a little longer before I come back. Who the heck are you, Jay Morant, to decide how long you're going to stay out? That's Adam Silver's job with the NBA. But Adam Silver, we're seeing he doesn't really have the backbone to suspend guys or take tough action. And I don't want to hear, well, the NBA Players Association isn't going for it. Let them appeal. What's the worst that's going to happen? The worst that'll happen, they're going to win the appeal. And Jay Morant has to come back earlier. But at least there's a league. You look like a strong league that you're taking action. And believe me, Jay Morant isn't going to have a lawsuit against the NBA. Well, they suspended me and they hurt my reputation. No court of law is going to back up Jay Morant in a lawsuit against the NBA. But the NBA is letting Jay Morant dictate everything here, and I don't like it at all.
Well, listen, Jack, they're not going to suspend John Morant for a season. That's not going to happen.
Why not, Matt?
Because he's too big a superstar. His team is in the middle.
Oh, but they don't have other superstars.
Too big in the middle of a chance of going maybe to the NBA championship. They got a very talented team. They take him off the team, they're not going to the championship, Jack. It's all about ratings. And they're not going to take John Morant off his team to suspend him for years. It's not going to happen.
If it was a guy who rode the bench, let's say an 11th man on the team, a guy who rode the bench, didn't get in a lot of games, people hardly heard of him. I didn't hear about him at all. The NBA, maybe they do suspend him a year, but no one would care. In Jay Morant's case, it's big news. You're saying the NBA won't do it. I'm saying what the NBA should do. Okay?
I think, listen, Jack, you know how old school I am. I agree with you. I'm just telling you the NBA ain't going to do that. They're not going to take
they won't do it. They won't do it. Yeah, because they lack backbone, the NBA.
Yeah,
they have a commissioner, Adam Silver, who lacks backbone, a league that lacks backbone. And these players will do things one after the other. And at least Jay Morant, the people advising him are very smart. They're getting ahead of the NBA. And they're deciding, oh, no, I got to be away at counseling. And Jay Morant's saying, no, I'm not ready to come back yet. He'll be ready for the playoffs to come back, Mac.
Yeah. But listen,
nothing lost from the Memphis Grizzlies.
The NBA, of course, is a players' league. A lot of the a lot of the sports are catching up to it, football, baseball, and that. But the NBA is still a players' league. They still are going to get what they want. I mean, I don't know. Was there a time? I imagine there was. Was there a commissioner that was hard on the NBA players? I can't remember. I don't know if there was.
No, the commissioner, the players conducted themselves much better back in the day, much better. But society was different. In all fairness,
Yeah.
I don't like the revisionist thinking. I know during the time with Commissioner Stern with the NBA, it was like the Wild West on the court. A player like Michael Jordan could be knocked on his behind. He could be given an elbow in the mouth. There was no protection of the superstars on the court, but they really weren't suspended off it as well. You see, the thing with Jay Morant, it's a few incidents that happened already with him, a few incidents, which is pretty alarming. But listen, hopefully this is a wake-up call for Jay Morant. Maybe it wakes him up and we don't have any of this nonsense again going forward. Maybe we do. But I wouldn't. But let's hope for the best in the case of Jay Morant, for him personally, more than anything else.
Good morning, Greg. Glad to have you aboard. Of course, Greg Wright, one of my buddies, a longtime buddy, and now Jack's buddy. So, knows boxing and stuff. Maybe sticks around for the interview. Talking about Ja Morant, Greg. I mean, the Philly sports guy says the inmates are running the asylum in the NBA.
I have to give the Philly sports guy, since we're in the NBA, a little bit of a dig. The 76ers long ago drafted Marcus Fultz, and he was supposedly one of these players who never panned out as a really good NBA player. But he's playing really well as a starter for the Orlando Magic. And if the Sixers had him now, he would certainly be an asset to the Sixers, playing the point guard, running the offense, allowing James Harden more of an opportunity to score.
Yeah, and you are right. Ja is young, and he will hopefully learn from this. We'll see what happens down the road, Craig. You never know with the young players. Some more NBA news. Brooke Lopez and Trey Lyles get into a wrestling match at the end of the game. Not a big deal. I mean, no punches were thrown like they used to in the old days, Jack. I mean, they just knock you out. They didn't care. But I guess it's a big deal for the NBA now, the little wrestling matches they have.
It had to do with Giannis, the way he was running, dribbling out the clock. Supposedly Giannis wasn't doing it the right way. I didn't see the tape. To me, it was just a temporary scuffle.
Yeah.
I think too big a deal was made over it. Players sometimes have a go at one another. It looks like a fight's going to break out. It gets broken up. And I think then we, should all just move on. It's no big deal.
I agree. Klay Thompson, Jack, made history, moves up to the NBA scoring list. I think it was like in the top 50 or something like that, Jack. Klay Thompson playing good this year. I mean, he was hurt last season, and he seems to be, he's helping the Warriors win some games.
I didn't realize that, Matt. Good information. I didn't realize Klay Thompson went into a top 50 of all time. I thought you maybe meant Steph Curry in the beginning, but I could see it being Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson, he might be the comeback player of the year in the NBA this year, arguably. I know there are other players who had off years last year. Klay Thompson, is part of the Golden State Warrior team, a key part that won the NBA title last year, but he didn't play as well as he did this year. And he took a lot of offense to Charles Barkley, saying he wasn't the same player. He took it personal. It made news. Other people were taking swipes at Barkley, but Barkley wasn't wrong when he said it. But Klay Thompson is, the way he's playing this year, he's been closer to his old self than a player that's on decline. So kudos to Klay Thompson for having a really good year. And the Golden State Warriors, they're the defending NBA champions. They're a threat. They're a threat to repeat. But talk now is Andrew Wiggins. Not Andrew Wiggins. Jordan Poole might be out the rest of the season. Personal issues. I'm not sure what's going on there, but
yeah,
we'll
they have
see.
they have a terrible away record, Jack. They've only won 7 games away. I think they're 7-27. You got to win on the road if you're going to go to a championship and win. So, it doesn't matter how good your players are. I think Curry hit 50 yesterday, and they still lost. So it's a.
But Matt, they're the one team who could turn a switch on and off and start playing well on the road because the guys have been there before. They've been champions, multiple times, some of them.
They're so small.
They have that championship pedigree. I think come playoff time, they really can turn the switch on and off.
Maybe so, but they're so small. I mean, it's a small team. They don't have no height at all. They just dominate them in the boards.
That's interesting. They had a big man, James Wiseman, who was the number 2 overall pick in the draft. And they just traded him to the Pistons, basically gave him away. And he had a big game for the Pistons the other night.
Yeah.
If James Wiseman develops into an elite NBA big man, the Warriors are never going to live it down. It would have meant there was terrible coaching, a terrible way to build up the player. He had his confidence destroyed early on, So let's see what goes on with James Wiseman, because it'll be one of the great blunders in NBA history if Wiseman turns out to live up to being a number 2 overall pick. And he's going to get the opportunity with Detroit. Detroit is arguably the worst team in the NBA, arguably, even though they have some promising young players. But Wiseman's going to get a big opportunity there.
No doubt. Damian Lillard's moving up, in the all-time scoring category too. Couple big 71-point games, Jack. I think he started too late. I mean, I don't know why, who he ended up with in the beginning or whatever, but he's finally. I mean, 71 points, Jack. That's a lot of points.
Well, he's been with Portland his career, and he has an outstanding attitude. He said the other day, he doesn't like the culture in the NBA, Damian Lillard. Too many guys chase a ring. A ring's only what it's all about. Just play for your darn team. Lay it all on the line for the team you have. He's with the Portland Trail Blazers, who are struggling to make the play-in position. They're on the outside looking in. But Damian Lillard plays hard each night. Just, go out there and play basketball. Enjoy the team you're playing for. Enjoy the city you're playing for. Give it all you have. Too many guys are ring chasers. Too many guys are complainers. Everyone wants to win a championship. I understand you play, you want to have a championship, but just go out there and enjoy the darn game. When you were growing up and you were playing on the courts and the playgrounds, you played to win the game, but you played for love of the game. You didn't play because you were going to get a ring at the end of it. Just enjoy the darn game and let the chips fall where they may. Chase the championship to a point, but not where there's going to be discontent, where you're going to ask to leave your team to go elsewhere.
Okay, listen, I agree with that too. It seems that the Bucks beat Phoenix to the 50-game win mark. They have already clinched a playoff game.
Well, Phoenix isn't near the 50-win mark at all.
46, they're 46, I think. But anyway, not Phoenix. Sorry, not Phoenix. Denver, Jack. My bad.
Denver, right.
Yeah. So they hit the 50-game mark, clinched the playoff spot. Giannis is playing back up to Giannis standards after that injury. Another, MVP candidate. We'll see if he gets it or not. So to me, you've got Giannis. You've got
Jokic.
Jokic, and you got
Joel Embiid.
Yeah, so
you got those three. I feel Jokic's chances are going to be hurt this year because of the debate with Kendrick Perkins and JJ Redick. Because Kendrick Perkins was claiming the voters, like 80% white or whatever, going to look to vote, they voted for Jokic. And JJ Redick took offense to that. And JJ Redick, I believe was correct. The voters aren't racist, thinking, I want to vote for a white guy. And then Kendrick Perkins tried to backtrack on the remark. And, it was for lively debate. But with that said, if Jokic is running neck and neck with Giannis, Embiid, and something, a voter's going to think, I don't want to be perceived as being racist, so he might vote for Giannis or Embiid. But with that said, maybe Giannis and Embiid genuinely deserve to be the MVP ahead of Jokic. It's close between all three. I mean, I would like to see Embiid get it because he's been such a fixture with the Sixers and has played at a high level for so long. But with that said, I kind of feel like Giannis is my guy. I'd give him a little edge right now if I were a voter. And, Jokic and Embiid are neck and neck right behind Giannis. In other words, let the rest of the regular season play out.
Agree.
Before, we vote for someone. But Mac, it's going to be a tight race, I think, this year.
I agree. I would love to see Embiid get it. With that said, folks, we're going to take a quick promotion break. On the other side, we should have our special guest coming in. So we'll be right back after these promotions.
He was a giant, and he was a cowboy. Now these two former rivals have joined forces to bring you the most insightful, perceptive, and controversial sports talk podcast in America. Former Dallas Cowboys defensive end Jim Jeffcoat locks horns with former New York Giants wide receiver Byron Williams. And now, here's Byron Williams and Jim Jeffcoat. If you like the sweet science, get ready to talk boxing on the Gloved Fist podcast with top boxing writers Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch. Frank, a former amateur boxer out of Philadelphia, writes for NY Fights and can be seen on the Boxing Channel. Jack, an amateur boxer who competed in the New York Golden Gloves, was a 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association. And now, here's Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch. It just might be the greatest sports franchise in the history of sports. A place where legends are made, and there's always something to talk about. Get ready to immerse yourself in pinstripes. Start spreading the news, hosted by Paul Semendinger and E.J. Fagan, a couple of doctors with a prescription for Yankee fever. And now, here's Dr. Paul Semendinger and Dr. E.J. Fagan. Get ready to start spreading the news.
See right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboys fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, get us any.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, our Thursday edition. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, boxing Hall of Fame writer, and of course, sports guru for this part of our shows, where he gives us his opinions and great stuff like that. Jack, in the Major League Baseball, I know you want to talk a little bit about the World Classic. Is that what they call it?
World Baseball Classic. Yeah, I was at the game in Miami yesterday. Venezuela against Israel. Venezuela won 5-1. And you see all the stars playing in the World Baseball Classic, the enthusiasm they show. But there's a certain amount of players who haven't played in that tournament, and I don't like it. Yesterday, the big news was when Puerto Rico beat the Dominican Republic. At the end of the game, when Puerto Rico was celebrating and jumping up and down, Edwin Diaz injured his knee. He might miss a good part of the season for the Mets. This year, we're going to see what transpires. They're still doing tests, and we'll get a report. And when a player gets injured in a tournament like that, the major league teams are going to say, you see, we don't want our guys playing in it. But shame on the players who haven't played in the World Baseball Classic. The United States, who's going into the semifinals and all, They have an excellent everyday lineup. They have guys like Mike Trout, Mookie Betts, who love playing in the World Baseball Classic. But the pitchers, Jacob deGrom, Max Scherzer, Garrett Cole, they stayed home. Yesterday, I'm watching Israel play Venezuela. Harrison Bader, the Yankees center fielder, elected not to play for Israel because he wants to go to spring training for the Yankees to get ready for the season. But the Yankees second baseman, Gleyber Torres, was playing for Venezuela and playing hard, sliding, taking big leads off the base, hustling. And I saw yesterday for Venezuela, Jose Altuve playing very hard. I mean, and Acuna for the Braves was in there. They had star players. Salvador Perez, maybe the best catcher in the baseball from the Kansas City Royals, is playing for Venezuela. I like that the elite players are playing, and a lot of position players for the most part. A lot of pitchers are staying home. I don't like it. Teams should not be able to dictate who plays and who doesn't. The only thing a team should be able to dictate for the World Baseball Classic is overuse of a pitcher. A pitcher shouldn't be pitched on short rest. There should be maybe a limit, which they do have now, in who and how often you could pitch them. Because if a pitcher goes a full 9 innings, hypothetically, you can't bring him back 3 days later, maybe. A team wouldn't want that. But then again, if it's a 7th game, if it's for the deciding championship game of the World Baseball Classic, yeah, maybe you do pitch him on short rest. But I think it's a great tournament that's kind of slipped under the radar by a lot of people. It's a lot of fun. And if you see the pride that these players show, Mac, they run out of the dugout. Team Venezuela runs out of the dugout. And, a guy hits a home run. They're greeting him at home plate. And this is just during the game, but they're greeting him like it was a game-winning homer. That's the enthusiasm these major league stars are showing.
Jack, do you blame the owners that they're looking out for their pitchers? I mean, they pay these guys a lot of money, Jack. So you saw what happened with Diaz, and he's just celebrating. He may be out for part of the year. He's a relief pitcher. So, I mean, can you blame the owners for being concerned about their pitchers playing?
Of course, I could understand concern, but they're babying these guys, Mac. Mariano Rivera was shagging fly balls in the outfield. He got injured, and had to miss a good part of the season, right? Just shagging fly balls. It can happen. Running to first base, the guy pulls up, gets injured. I mean, you just can't do it, hold these guys back. I hate the idea of a Brian Cashman dictating, no, we need Garrett Cole. We want to keep our pitchers behind. But it's okay Gleyber Torres plays, because now they could look at Jose Pedraza and Anthony Volpe a little more carefully. So it's okay Gleyber Torres is off on the side. They shouldn't be dictating anything at all. I mean, Why isn't Aaron Judge playing in the World Baseball Classic? I want to know.
They're not going.
I mean, why?
They're not.
I mean, who the heck is Brian Cashman to dictate this?
Well, if Aaron Judge gets hurt, Jack, what happens to the Yankees offense?
If Mike Trout is playing, Jose Altuve is playing, Mookie Betts is playing.
Yeah.
Because, okay, what if they get hurt? Don't you think the Angels have just as much invested in Mike Trout for the most part? They have him on the contract for a lot of years. He can get injured. Yeah.
The Angels do, but the Dodgers don't. Dodgers got plenty of players. I mean, if he gets hurt, they can put somebody in for him.
Mookie Betts doesn't get replaced easily. He's a key guy on the Dodgers.
It's true.
But Mike Trout's a better example.
Yeah.
He's the Angel franchise player.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's on the injury risk when he's playing. And Aaron Judge not to be there. What a disgrace. You want to know something, Mac? If I'm a player, I'm independent enough, a big-time player, I tell them I'm playing in the World Baseball Classic if I'm Aaron Judge. I'm sorry, I'm playing. I'm representing the United States, so on. And you look at some of the countries, they have to dig up players of their nationalities. And I'm laughing. I'm looking at the Israeli lineup. And there was one major leaguer who played a borderline guy with the Atlanta Braves. But these are career minor leaguers. I'm seeing games teams like, I probably have this somewhat wrong, the Southern Maryland Crabs, something like that, guys from there. And I'm getting a kick. I'm seeing another guy for Israel playing from the Long Island Ducks.
Yeah.
They're not, and these are minor leaguers, and a lot of them, Mac, are mid-level minor leaguers. They're not elite minor leaguers. They're not even on the top of the chain, and they're going against top guys. They had a pitcher who was drafted, an Orthodox pitcher. I forgot his darn name, by Arizona, I believe it was. He's 19 years old. And here he is, a minor leaguer, not an elite minor leaguer, but he has some potential. He's pitching to the likes of the Dominican Republic, to Juan Soto and Rafael Devers and guys like that. And they take him out in the second inning because they pitch these guys a limited amount of times. And you see him smiling in the dugout. It was like a dream. I'm pitching to the top of the line major leaguers in a big game. And you saw him throw a couple of nasty pitches to Rafael Devers. And Devers looked at him and kind of like nodded his head a couple of times. Hey, you got a little something to your kid. He was 19. And that was kind of a nice interaction. But these guys, I'm telling you, in this tournament, they're playing to win. Don't tell me about greedy ball players. If you saw these guys, if you've been following this tournament, these guys are playing for two things: love of nationality, but also love of game. They are playing hard. Money means nothing to them, in this tournament.
All right. Well, speaking of 19-year-olds, Duque Hebert came in from the bullpen, the ninth inning, top of the ninth, struck out three superstars in the top of the
Dominican Republic. Yeah.
Juan Soto, Julio Rodriguez, Manny Machado. And Detroit called him and signed him to a contract, Jack.
Yeah, imagine that. You're facing guys like Machado, Julio Rodriguez, Juan Soto. Julio Rodriguez has been struggling for Seattle, a Seattle player. They took a gamble on him that he's going to be a star, and they signed him to like a 13, 14-year deal or something, or maybe a little less, till the age of 37, where he's going to get very good money for a lot of years, but not the break the bank type money he'd have to get later. So it was win-win for the player and for the team. But he's got to be better when he goes to Seattle. He's been struggling at bat. And in the field yesterday, Francisco Lindor hits a ball for Puerto Rico, and it gets misplayed. And Lindor gets a little league home run. They throw the relay in, that gets dropped. It's fun, these little league homers in the big league game, because these big leaguers are so good, and to see a little league play, we kind of get a kick out of it because we have recollections of when we were in little league and we never got to the major league level. But yeah, this pitcher, he strikes out three, he gives up a hit, but the scout for the Tigers is saying, wait a second, Juan Soto, Julio Rodriguez, and Manny Machado, they're trying their best to get a hit. And if you strike out all three, I don't even have to see you pitch. I'm going to sign you to some type of minor league deal. I want to see more of you.
Sure. That's cool. That's every kid's dream.
Yeah.
Let's get into a little boxing news, Jack. Tyson Fury make fun of. Here we go. Yes. It looks like we've got our guest in, our boxing guest coming in, Chris the Mechanic Smith, New York Golden Glove champion. Let's bring him up.
Hey.
How you doing, Chris?
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Jack. How you doing? Hey,
Hey,
Mac.
good, Chris. How have you been?
I'm pretty good. Just working on this book. History Favors the Bold. Happy to be on with you guys.
Now, Chris, I mean, I don't know whether you remember me or how well. I used to cover your fights back in the day because it was before the time of internet. There'd be a lot of shows as the only reporter. Now, you were handled by Johnny Boz, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember us chatting, and John was also a friend of mine, so he would be talking to me about you. So I covered a good amount of your fights. I don't know whether you ever saw the reports on them. Al Gavin wasn't your cut man, so he used to give out copies, because I know Johnny wasn't high on Al Gavin as a cut man. That's why I'm guessing he wasn't your cut man. I'm putting two and two together.
No, it wasn't that. He was also good friends with Danny Milano.
Good cut man. Yeah, great cut man.
So he also related to Al Gavin. So that's right. So that's how that worked out. It was a family thing, but no, he loved Al Gavin.
Yeah. Well, Greg Wright says hi to you, Chris. He's a big boxing fan.
Hey, how you doing, Greg?
So he's glad that you're on with us, Chris. Let's talk a little bit about your career, your book, maybe a little personal life. You were New York Golden Gloves champion, and also two-time welterweight champion, amateur, if I'm correct, during your career.
Pro, some NABA welterweight champion.
Gotcha.
American Boxing Association champion. I was a time of my life when I won it in DC against Marlon Haynes. That was a hell of a fight. That was a very exciting fight. You know, I wish that fight should have been publicized. That fight should have been on TV. And it was a great night. I ended up losing that title to what was the guy's name? Pretty decent fighter. But I had an opportunity against Sean B. Mitchell, which I ended up losing because of a cut. In the 10 seconds into the fifth round, I didn't agree with the fact that he won the championship. I think it should have been a majority draw, or because it was only 10 seconds into the fifth round. I don't know how you could, or 15 seconds. I don't know how you could score that, and I ended up losing the title on that.
They scored a partial round, I guess, in that fight.
Right, but it wasn't even a minute in.
So Behave the T says, that's my man, whoever Behave the T is. Obviously one of your fans out there. So Chris, from what I gathered, you were 21-6-1 was your record, which is a very good record. Where do you put yourself in a class of welterweights at that time? Do you think you could have fought almost any of the welterweights that were big then, the Sugar Ray Leonards or the Thomas Hearns, and gave them a good fight?
I think so. I think it's just about getting the opportunity and being in shape. I was never able to really get in shape, which I talk about in the book. A lot of people know I had a debilitating knee injury that just got worse and worse as time went on, and my entire career I couldn't run more than 3 miles a day. Sometimes I just have to shut it down because the knee would blow up on me. I've had big fights where I've had to stop 2 weeks during training to let the knee heal up. So I never really got a chance to get to my full potential when I was boxing, when I was at my so-called prime, because of the knee. But since I was able to take some time off from boxing, I got the knee surgery that I needed, and I never knew what was really wrong with it. I just knew I had a problem. But I found out what was wrong. The knee had bone that was damaged, that was being rubbed against the cartilage. So every time I would go running, or I ran or did something strenuous towards the left side, it would pull on the ligaments, the knee would swell up. So the doctor said to me, well, if you ever want to run again, you need to get the surgery.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, absolutely. So
how many years did you end up boxing for, Chris?
I did it for 8 years. 8 years as a pro.
Well, there you go. And I
And
guess
the
Jack,
mark of how you could handle yourself in the ring, you only stopped once in what, like 28 fights?
Right. Which was really due to fatigue. And, I was sick going into the fight. I mean, if I I did a little bit too much, and I wore myself out. And, when I fought in Finland once, and I try to replicate that whole scenario, what I did. And what I did, I burned myself out. And I mean, to the point where I couldn't sweat anymore. I was in the dressing room, I was working out, I was jumping rope, I was doing everything, but I literally could not sweat at all. And that's when I got nervous, and I couldn't feel my legs underneath me. It was a pretty nervous time for me. But and all these things I speak about in the book, just some weird things. I could never get a rematch with the guy. I tried to get a rematch, it just wouldn't happen. They wouldn't give it to me.
What's your opinions of today's welterweights, Chris, out there competing right now?
Oh, some very good fighters out there. The welterweight division is, action as always, and I mean, these guys they look good to me. They look very good.
You think the Spence Crawford fight's going to come off?
I think at some point it will. I think it's a fight that they both need for their legacy. If they don't fight, especially at their prime as undefeated fighters, it's going to hurt them more than it hurts us. Because you had the Haglers and the Leonards. You had Leonard, Marvin. I mean, these guys they need to fight. It's for their legacy, and 20 years from now, 30 years from now, they'll be talking about that fight. Or if it doesn't happen, they'll talk about the fight that never happened.
Yeah.
Now, you were managed by one of the great characters of the sport, Johnny Baz. And if most people listening aren't familiar with Johnny Baz, he was unique. Big, heavy guy, would wear the fur coat, had opinions that were out of the norm. I mean, out of the norm. And I get in a lot of conversations with John, and I'd be beating my head against the wall. I mean, when he was onto something, and his theories and so on. But great character, but one of the best boxing minds I'd ever come across. Tell us a little about how it was to be managed by John. Did he manage you from the time you were an amateur?
No, but Johnny used to always keep tabs on me with a guy named Neil from the amateurs, and so he knew about me. He knew pretty much well about me, and I ended up meeting Johnny at the Golden Gloves. No, it was at the Troy Waters. It was Troy Waters versus was it Shane Mosley? I think at the Garden. And that's where I met Johnny at, and either was Troy Waters or Terry Norris. My memory fails me right now, but it was a great fight.
Waters or Norris.
Norris, right? Okay, yeah, and that's where I met Johnny Baz, and we just kicked it off from the very beginning, and he basically guided my career. We had he was the agent / manager, and he brought in Chris Seeger, who was my manager on paper, and I mean it was just a great time. Johnny was just a brilliant mind. He had the whole Tough Man contest in Maine, and he managed just about he put his hands on just about every great fighter that came up in the last, I would say, 30 to 40 years when he was coming up, when he was active.
Yeah.
And he just knew, he had one of these minds that he just knew how this fight was going to work out, and it was going to go to distance. This guy's going to win. He's going to lose. I mean, he was a genius.
Yeah.
Wizard.
So, Chris,
Johnny didn't like to fly, so if you had to fight overseas, Johnny wasn't going to go. He wasn't going to go anywhere. I mean, maybe he could take train to California from New York. But,
Right. At one point, he had a bus or one of those trailer homes, and someone was from everywhere. He didn't know how to drive either. He didn't have a driver's license, and so they would drive him everywhere. And I mean, because he wouldn't fly, like Jack said, and he would drive everywhere to all the fights, but he definitely wouldn't fly.
So, Chris, I mean, a big concern today is about, you know, the boxers getting concussions. You know, the former greats and even the ones that aren't greats. Boxing takes a toll out of all those shots you get to the head. Do you have any kind of any kind of thing that is affects you? Does it affect you in any way?
I don't have anything that affects me from boxing as far as physical or any mental issues, you know, pain. I don't have that, thank God. The only thing that I have is or had was a knee injury that wasn't even boxing related, but it affected my boxing career. And
right.
Even, I mean, to this day, so I've still stayed active out in Pennsylvania and been getting some work with some really good fighters out there, you know. So I definitely know I still got it, and hopefully at some point, if things change around, I'll be able to get a few fights in, you know, before it's all done and said. So I've got one foot in the door, you know, and one foot out, so to speak. But as far as any lingering issues from boxing, I have none.
Oh, that's excellent. We're speaking to the author of History of the Bold, with Chris the Mechanic Smith.
Three favors bold.
Yes. I don't want you to give away your book totally, Chris, because you know we want people to read it for you. There you go. Nice cover.
Thank you.
There is a secret hidden that comes to the top, and without giving it away, I guess. What happened there, Chris?
You know what? Well, I guess we're gonna have to give it away a bit. I all my life I never knew that I had a sleeping disorder, and a matter of fact, the first person that told me that I had a sleeping disorder was Johnny Boz. I used to always stay at Johnny's house as often as I could, and he said one day, he said, "Chris, you've got a weird sleeping disorder. Like you got up, got some water, and got me some water, but you were sleeping." Can you believe that? And when he told me about it, I was like, "What? Are you serious?" And then I actually even forgot about that. He told me that, you know, but everything started to come because I had some, and this has nothing to do with boxing. Before boxing happened, I had a, I had memory loss. Like, you know, I couldn't remember certain things from when I was a kid, you know, and everything started to come back together and put the pieces together while writing the book. But yeah, Johnny was the first person that told me that I had a sleeping disorder, and I never knew about it.
All right. So, go ahead, Jack.
No, Johnny's habits weren't exactly the best nutrition-wise. I mean, Johnny would eat a hot dog for breakfast. I'm just giving an example, and Johnny would be up at all hours himself. So it's interesting that Johnny would pick up on that.
Yeah, you know, Johnny, man, I love Johnny so much. I miss him. You know, I think about him often, and you know, it's always I get emotional when I think about Johnny. You know,
I could tell you a funny Johnny Boz story with myself. He's trying to make a case in front of other people on the street outside one of the arenas about one of his fighters, Emmanuel Acero. That he makes a big argument. He has a whole crowd listening to him, and then he says, "Don't you agree with me, Jack?" Figuring out a little credibility, and I go, "No." At that moment, Johnny slaps me in the face, but it lost its power. The slap that started hard, by the time it made contact with my face, the impact wasn't as great because something in Johnny's mind told him not to do it. And I'm Johnny's friend. The moment he slaps me in the face, he gives me a bear hug in front of everyone else, and everyone else is laughing like it's a joke, like Johnny's joking. Later, I called Johnny up the next day and told him I was pretty ticked off about him, slapping me in the face. He completely denied it. He said like that I would ever do anything like that. He's going blah, 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 telling me how insulted he is that I would even think that he would slap me. So Johnny slaps me in the face, and I find myself apologizing to Johnny. That's the power Johnny does.
And Johnny was a big, lovable bear,
Yeah.
I mean, I could tell you stories about that. Johnny never forgot a Christmas holiday, or a birthday, to his friends. He always sends gifts, no matter what. I mean, that was a great guy, especially to the people that knew him, that loved him. Always. I was there with him many years while he did this. Never forgot a birthday. And one of the things Johnny loved to do, he would I don't think they have them anymore, but he would always like to go down to 34th Street and get those knockoffs. So many times you go down there and get clothes, video cassettes, and going a bit back. And it was a good time to be with Johnny.
Yes, video cassettes. That brings me back there.
Yeah.
Yes. When was the best boxing city for you that you ever been to? What would be your favorite boxing city?
New York.
The club circuit, right? Long Island, Plainview.
Long Island was great. Yeah.
Philadelphia, no.
Club. Yeah.
Well, Philly is great. It is great fight town, gritty city. But I had my fights in New York. A lot of fights in New York. I did have a fight out in what is that? What is it? As soon as you get to Pennsylvania, it was like a resort town. I fought Keith Canton there. I'm trying to remember the name, but it was a great fight between me and Keith Canton. Actually, the first guy to ever knock me down. Knocked me down in the first round. I got up and I stopped him in the second round. After a year-long layoff, that was a pretty exciting fight. I'm happy to get through it. Great Bernard Hopkins was at that fight, and I got a bunch of autographed pictures from Bernard Hopkins. He gave me some very good advice that night. Told me to think. When I'm in there, think, because I went out there rushing, trying to just jump on this guy, because I was pretty upset for being off for the entire year, which I didn't want to be. But
right. So, you named a couple. Who was the best fighter that you went up against in your career?
I'll say Sean Bay Mitchell. Yeah, most notable. But I would have stopped Sean Bay that night. I would have definitely stopped him. Just bad luck. It's bad luck. Just that strange head clash. The fight, to me, didn't even start yet. It was getting ready to start. The first time I threw any notable punches, with some real power behind it, we ended up having that strange head clash. Something like that never happened before to me, and it just came at the worst time in my career.
Well, your career points out the all or nothing aspect of boxing. There's a certain cruelty there that you could be better than 90% of the fighters in your division, and it's miles away from the championship. And making the type of money that you'd really like to make. It's a real tough sport in that sense.
It is. You got to be marketable. You got to be someone that the public wants to get behind. We we put my style in a position where people would want to see me, always applying pressure, staying busy. People come to the fights to see hands fly. Someone that's gonna keep the pressure. Like the old school fighters. Guys that always stayed on top of their opponents, and that's what we tried to do. That's what we tried to emulate. But it didn't. It did work out. It's just that we had some rough patches that came up, like the me overtraining, and that's really the only thing that put us in a bad position.
Who trained you? Who trained you, Chris, during your pro career?
Reggie Ford started me out.
Good pro fight himself.
Yeah, Reggie Ford, and we worked through the amateurs. We won just about all the amateur tournaments in New York. Then I had the tournament overseas in Finland, and we ended up going to the nationals, and we were in the same nationals that Corey. What's his last name? Corey Spinks was in. Corey ended up winning the whole thing. But the weird thing about it, we fought a guy from Montana, and it was a clear cut robbery, and it just sort of freaked Reggie out. While taking the gauze off, he accidentally cut my finger and cut my hand, and it just it was just because we knew what the upside would be if we would have got the opportunity to fight and win that championship. Because I would have definitely won it if it wasn't for you just got to get through that first fight, and I just felt like they took it from me, and. But it was just it was a great time. So I worked with Joey also, and
Joey Camacho.
Yes, Joey Camacho, and I learned a lot from Joey. He comes from a fighting family. His father.
Well, was Joey Camacho? Wait, he wasn't training guys when you were fighting pro, was he?
Well, he was. He was getting into the business, he had a
because I'd helped Joey out. I had spoken to Manuel Stewart about Joey, and he wasn't training guys on Johnny's fighters, to my knowledge, at the time. But
he was starting to, getting into the gym and working with guys because he worked with me, and I worked with him for a couple of his fights or. Two of his fights at the very end, and I learned a lot from Joey, and it was great. He trained me for a couple big fights of mine, at ESPN, against Sam Garr. Joey was there. He was there with me against Shambi Mitchell, and everything was working out great. It's just bad timing, that head clash. And that just disrupt everything, disrupt the whole rhythm, not just for that one fight. It was, a spiraling downward effect, and it was hard to break out of it.
Yeah. You got a Jason Gonzalez that he grew up with you.
Jason's a great guy. Yeah.
Yeah. South Ozone Park. So.
Right.
All right. There you go. See, you never know who you run into on the show. I'll tell you, Chris.
Hey, I'll tell you. Especially on the writers' show.
Yes, exactly. Gonna get your opinion on something that Jack kind of has come around to. I still think it's terrible. Jake Paul, YouTube sensation. Jack thinks it's good for boxing in a way, keeps it out there. I still think it's not real boxing. What are your thoughts on that, Chris?
It's not a traditional boxing, but it does keep boxing out there. I think it's great for boxing. I do, because it puts boxing out there. So many people are tuning into boxing because of these guys. YouTube sensation. Think about it. The headliner of boxing, Floyd Mayweather. He stepped into the ring with a YouTuber, because the attraction is there, the money is there. So I applaud Jay Paul for what he's done and the attention he's brought to my sport, the attention he's brought to boxing. It's great. It really is.
Okay.
Chris, nicknames could be so important if you have the right nickname. Your nickname is unique, the Mechanic. Not many people have that. How did you get your nickname?
Johnny. Yeah, so I remember one time we were when we were trying to put everything together. We're gonna make a comeback, and we were talking about it. And first, I was thinking about going with the electrician because my dad's an electrician, and he said, "No, we got to go with something else." And we just kept floating around with the whole working style. And he says, you're when you're in there, you just work. You're just working all the time, and then we just came up with the Mechanic, and it fit.
Yeah, I mean, is that because you're mechanical, or is it because
always working the body?
Okay,
always working the body, and that's how we came up with that. So I think we did a great job.
Yeah, it's definitely unique. I've never seen nothing like that for a nickname. So, Chris, anything, Jack, if you want to say anything, Chris, have you got anything anymore on the book? Again, check it out. It's on Amazon, right, Chris?
It's on Amazon. History Favors the Bold. Put it up. History Favors the Bold. It's a great book. It's a great read. Just a lot of things that people wouldn't know about me, things that fighters have to go through, or certain individuals go through. Have a strange life coming up, a difficult life coming up, and still be able to achieve many things. I've had 5 careers, no felonies. Being all-time, for me, all-time good guy. I've been a pacifist for over 30 plus years, even with boxing, to be able to control my emotions. And I think that's key, to be able to control your emotions, to be able to go in the ring and, have a guy throwing 90 mile per hour punches at you, and to stay cool and relaxed underneath that. It's about discipline, but it is a great book, and I think everyone will walk away learning something from it. To be kind and courteous to your fellow man, because you never know what they're going through.
I agree. Excellent stuff, Chris. So people, guys, check out Amazon, check out the book, hey, listen. I mean, I love boxing, Chris. I'm a huge boxing fan, so I'm definitely going to check it out. It's on Amazon, The History of the Bold, with author Chris Mechanic. Thank you very much for coming in, Chris. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, thanks, Chris.
Thank you. You guys take care. Hey, thanks, Jack. History Favors the Bold.
Yes, sir. Take care, buddy.
All right.
So there you go, folks. Chris the Mechanic Smith, The History of the Bold. Nice guy, Chris.
Yeah, good fighter, very good fighter,
Yes.
very, good, solid fighter. And like
Yeah.
I said, boxing's a cruel sport. You could have 10 different levels, and he could be at this next to best level, and there could be 8 levels below him. But yeah, only it seems like the top 2-3% reach the ultimate awards, participate. Right. But he was a heck of a good boxer, better than most.
I'm glad you became a writer, Jack. But after you boxed, did you ever think about becoming a trainer or a promoter, anything like that?
No. I like writing, and I like coaching besides, and teaching, and
right.
That was
right.
good. Yeah. So what else do we got? Yeah. So good stuff. Good guest, Mac.
Yeah.
Good
yes. We could take another quick look at the NBA, the standings. You got Milwaukee, Boston in second, Philly in third, Cleveland, the New York Knicks in fifth, Nets, Miami, Atlanta, and Toronto. There is Cleveland signs Sam Morrall, Jack, to the team. Sam Morril, I guess, has been on a guard in the NBA for quite a while. I don't think I've ever heard of him, but I guess he was.
Mac, why are you even mentioning it, Mac?
Because
you mentioned a guy who's completely insignificant to the team. I'm struggling, and I'm thinking, what the heck is Mac talking about?
Me too.
Then you turn it to me to make a comment of something I have no clue of what you're even talking about.
Well, I mean,
man,
listen,
tell me about significant moves that could impact the team at least a little.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know who you mean here. But listen, I will say this, Mac. Early in the year, maybe you drive me crazy by constantly going over the standings, but now you're justified to your credit because it is late in the season, and every day, like a little switch could be going, like who's going to be in the play-in tournament, who's going to be in the playoff tournament. I'm looking at the Eastern Conference, Mac. The first 6 teams are considered the playoff teams. Teams 7 to 10 are play-in teams. Now, the Nets hold the 6th and final playoff position, but the Miami Heat are just 2 games behind the Nets. Let me ask you this, Mac. With approximately 13 games to play, I'm talking about both teams, do you think Miami makes up the 2 games on the Brooklyn Nets?
Yes, I do.
I kind of have a feeling they're going to do it because it's kind of crunch time now. The play-in games are scary because they're so short. It's kind of like a one-and-done formula. In the playoff games, you're going, like best 4 out of 7. You got some breathing room there.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting. The Knicks only 1 game ahead of Brooklyn, but the Knicks will be fine because the Knicks have a solid team. They're not going to fall apart. But because the Nets are in a rebuilding mode, I could see them falling apart. Miami's got Jimmy Butler. They have even Lowry coming off the bench. They even picked up Kevin Love. So they're pieces in place for Miami where they can catch them. The Knicks aren't going to move. The Knicks, Jason, are in the 5th seed. Okay, so I don't know what Jason feels they're moving up to. They're the 5th seed right now.
He
The Knicks will move up to a 4th. He says they're going to move up to a 4th or 5th seed. They're in the 5th seed.
Well,
what you're telling us, they're there already. Could they move up to a 4th seed? I don't think so because Cleveland is 2 1/2 games ahead of the Knicks. And even though there's enough time, there's really – Cleveland has 10 more games to play on their schedule. And they have a 2.5 game lead on the Knicks. And Cleveland has a very good team. So the Knicks aren't catching Cleveland. It's just not happening. But you look in the play-in thing, for example, the last slot is held by the Washington Wizards. And a half game behind them is the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls have been underachievers all year. With their talent, they've been a major disappointment. And the Indiana Pacers, who got off to a good start and then faltered, they're 1 game behind Washington for the play-in position.
Yeah. And you've been ridiculing Michael Jordan as the owner of the Wizards for a long time here, Jack. And they seem to be playing pretty well right now.
Matt, they're 22-49. How well are they playing? I mean, what the heck are you? The Charlotte Bobcats are next to last. The only team that they're ahead of is the Detroit Pistons, who we said early in the show have arguably the worst team in basketball. The Charlotte is stuck. They're practically mathematically in the next to last slot.
Right.
No, they're not playing well, Mac. They're pretty pathetic. Jordan has been a lousy owner for the Charlotte Bobcats. I don't mean lousy in the way he treats people. Right. I mean lousy as far as improving the basketball team. There's got to be accountability. If Jordan was the owner, let's say the Knicks in their bad year after year, wouldn't people get on him? I mean, why are people giving him a pass there in Charlotte? Because they're so thrilled that the great Michael Jordan, who is a Charlotte guy who played for North Carolina, is there. Speaking of North Carolina, I got a question to ask you, Mac.
Sure.
North Carolina lost in the NCAA championship game last year. Traditionally, they've always been an elite type program. This year, things didn't go their way. They didn't make the NCAA tournament. They were invited to the NIT tournament. As soon as the invitations went out, they quickly declined it. It was as if they were too good. It was beneath them to take part of the NIT tournament.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I think it's terrible. I mean, I know the NIT tournament has dropped off a lot since March Madness, but at one time that was the place everybody wanted to go. And I think it gives your team a chance to play some more basketball, right? That's what you want to do. You want to continue playing basketball and give the young guys a shot. I mean, maybe some of the vets don't want to. I don't know. Maybe like you say, they think it's beneath them, but I think that's terrible. And
what a great point you make, Mac. And to expound on your point further, you accept the invitation. Play the guys who haven't played much during the year, the guys who've been on the bench, and let everyone know beforehand, look, the reason we're being in this tournament, we want to reward our guys who've been on the bench. We're not necessarily playing our starters, our top guys. We want to reward some of these guys and give them some more playing time. Even if it means we get eliminated, they've earned the right to play, on a somewhat big stage still.
Sure.
But the NIT tournament is looked at by certain schools. It's kind of looked at as like a reject tournament, and they don't want to play in something like that. And especially, I'm North Carolina. I'm this famous school. I'm the North Carolina Tar Heels. How could I play in the NIT tournament? And even if we win it, no big deal. Because the school that wins it, they're not real. They've won a championship in a tournament, but really they're not college champions per se. Right. They're playing in the alternate tournament, because they couldn't make the big dance. But certain of the smaller schools, they're thrilled just to be in the NIT tournament.
Jack, I think that a lot of the smaller schools that go into March Madness would be better off going and playing the NIT. They're not going to win. They're not going to win anything in the NCAA. So why not go down there and play some in a good tournament? I think it's a great tournament, Jack. I really do. So
and this is a thought-provoking question for you. A small school you're mentioning, one of these smaller, not well-known schools, what would they be better off if you had a choice? Make the NCAA tournament, get blown out in the first game, or play the NIT tournament and win the championship.
Yeah.
What would be better?
Of course, winning the championship. Doesn't that make sense? I mean, Jack, I feel bad for the kids that go in and they play and they don't get a shot to get in the game, and whether they're on scholarship or not. I mean, they're working as hard as the other players, maybe harder, to try to get some play time. This is an opportunity, and to me, the coaches in the athletic departments, they're nuts. They should hold the NIT in better favor. So
that's what gets me to coaches who don't look to play kids. I mean, I know when I coached high school, if we were blowing another team out, I'd always look to get guys in the game. I would always look for an opportunity to make them feel part of the team, for them to play. I could never understand, you take a basketball team, one team's beating the other by 30 points, and it's late in the game and you're not clearing your bench to give certain guys a chance to play. It even happened something like that during the 1980 Olympics. Everyone remembers Craig, the USA goalie who had a tremendous tournament, Jim Craig. Great tournament. His backup was a goalie named Steve Janikowski. Steve Janikowski didn't get in any games in the Olympics at all. Now, you would figure one of the games, late in the game, the USA is up 5 goals. you figure, Herb Brooks, the head coach, would at least get him in so the kid could say, I played in the Olympics. I wasn't just on the Olympic team, but he didn't do it. So I can never figure out some of this coaching mentality at times. It's kind of too business-like.
Well, I'll do you one better. When I coached, in youth and high school, I played everyone, Jack, every game. And I would do that because I could control where an offense I ran the ball. If I was running to the right, I'd sub the left and so forth. And by the end of the year, the subs were as good as my starters. And the following year, the team kept winning because the guys came back because they played. And if you're going to have any kind of successful coaching program, you got to get the guys back. So your team doesn't go up and down. I mean, you don't want to rebuild every year. So, I mean, to me, coaching is an art almost, Jack, where you the kids, you have the kids doing a thing for the team that they never thought they could do, and it's a great feeling. So anyway,
yeah, I mean, but you do have to play to win. I coached JV baseball in high school. Okay,
of course. You always
junior varsity baseball, and there was one game we didn't win. One of the kids who I had been platooning in the outfield, he misplayed 2 fly balls. He should have caught them both. Clearly misplayed them.
Right.
And they weren't hard catches. And I gradually was sitting them down because I felt the other kid I would play ahead of him gave us a much better chance of winning the game. And I remember the kid talked to me, his father talked to me, and they were saying, but we're a team. The idea is to play everyone. And I said, look, I'll try to get him in when I can. But the first thing you have to do as a team, try to win the game. You're not talking about second grade. Once you're in high school and it's a varsity, in this case, junior varsity, you have to understand that winning is the first thing you want to take care of. And you're trying to incorporate everyone into that best you can.
I'll agree.
But you're not going to play one kid ahead of the other for the sake of, just participation. It's more than just participation at that point.
Oh, I agree, Jack. As long as they're keeping score, I'm going to try to win. And that's just the way it is. That fun stuff is great for T-ball. But when you start getting up and you start playing for real and the score is being kept, to me, and, this didn't make every parent happy, but it did most of them. I'm out there to win, and I want the kids to win. And that's the way we played. Folks, thanks for tuning into our show. Thanks to Chris the Mechanic Smith for coming in. He's a very pleasant, good man. And from what Jack says, top 80% boxer maybe. So, the guy had himself a career. So, folks, again, thanks for coming in. Thanks to Greg. Thanks for all the comments and views. And we'll be back tomorrow on the Mac and Jack Friday edition with Keith Angle, Byron Williams, and the Philly Sports Guy. Have a great Thursday, folks.